Welcome to Kim Talks Resilience, where we share stories of insight and inspiration in life, love, and business with resilient women from around the world. Speaking with authors, entrepreneurs, founders, and coaches to learn their strategies for a more resilient life so we can all build the life we love. I'm your host, Kim Hayden. All righty. Welcome back. Super glad that you are choosing to share your time here with us at Kim Talks Resilience. I'm Kim Hayden. And it's always about how can we grow? And it's funny because I was at a conference down in Chicago as of recently. I don't know if anybody is aware what's going on in the commercial real estate world, but it's not pretty. And so a lot of people have this saying of survive till 25. And I heard that for the first time, and it's like, I don't know if that's something that I personally want to live by. If I survive to 25, do I miss 24? And so I'm really excited to have our guest today. Marin is a triple certified expert in life coaching, budget coaching, and yoga. She holds a degree in psychology from the University of St. Thomas and positive development of psychology from Claremont Graduate University. As an accomplished author of the #1 released Ready Enough and a visionary behind Yes and since 2018, a financial literacy coaching company, Marin has been featured on numerous podcasts. After a personal breakdown in 2021, she passionately addresses the unmet need for candid discussion on rich girl problems. Marin's mission is clear: blend mindset and positive psychology to guide individuals in mending their relationships with money, fostering a holistic life changes that yield real results and reduced stress, increased joy, and financial prosperity. And I don't know about you guys, but I think this is going to be a very timely discussion, having, going into there's a lot of fear around money right now. And we're all told, oh, you should be grateful for what you have. Well, yes, be grateful, please. Because you know what, if you're listening to this, it means you're alive today. And that's so much more than other people have the opportunity. Other people that we are now, we do a celebration of life. They're not here with us. So be grateful that you're breathing, but be grateful that you're here listening to the show. But things can always be better, and we need guidance and leadership for that. So let's bring Marin in. Hello, Marin. How are you?
Hi, Kim. I'm wonderful. And I should have said right at the beginning, it's Marin, long A.
Marin. Okay, everybody.
all good.
Marin. It's all good. Hey, I did a 45-minute talk with somebody and realized it was not Cathay, it was Kada. And I wasn't quite sure where the D came from, but hey, that's thank God my mom just gave me Kim.
Yes, I make that correction quite often, so it's all good.
Okay, so everybody, Marin will have the proper spelling in the show notes, I promise. So Marin, tell us a little bit, first of all, where are you coming from? Where are you at? Because I'm always curious where people are coming from.
I'm in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Oh, you're in Minnesota. Mm-hmm. Say, Minnesota, isn't that where bowling, the strike group, the Brunson big bowling company, I think, is in Minnesota. Oh. I know everybody always says cheese. Or is cheese Wisconsin?
Cheese of Wisconsin, but I was born in Wisconsin, so we're right next door.
Okay, there you go. Well, I'm from Kansas originally, but now it wasn't cold enough in Kansas, so I went to Canada, and it's really cold all the bloody time. Okay, so I'd like to dive in a little bit as to get that pre-frame as to who you are, Marin, and what, because I find that a lot of times our pre-frame helps guide why we do what we do. So give us who you are.
Yeah, gosh. My name is Marin Laukka. I am the founder of Yes and in 2018. It's a financial literacy coaching company, and it has been called a few things along the way. When I opened it in 2018, I actually had quite a few things on my website. I had evaluation services, which I'm professionally trained in. I had speaking, which I still do to this day. I have had an author, which I was in the process of becoming, and now have my first published book. And and I started off really focusing on helping and empowering women to make decisions that are aligned with who they really are, what they really value, what they really want in life. But I kept coming up against the same thing over and over again. And that was, even once we got clear on the decision that they wanted to make, finances, if they weren't talked about directly, were going to come in and sabotage or at least guide the decision in one way or another. And so I decided and saw the need to talk about this firsthand. Going back to the bigger question of who I am and what then guides how I approach that discussion and what even led me to this is I was born in a middle upper class family and have had white privilege, all the privileges. My education was paid for. That master's degree that we spoke about earlier was covered, and it was a privileged place for me to be as well, in terms of being in at first, the only positive psychology PhD program in the country. That's where I began before leaving with my master's degree. And I've been gifted a lot of things, including access to a lot of resources. And that breakdown mentioned in my bio, that breakdown was realizing the weight of this and that I hadn't admitted that weight to myself. So, although many people, when they think of budget coaching, for instance, they think of getting out of the paycheck to paycheck cycle or getting out of debt. And although the programs and the resources I teach my clients and work through in a coaching model can definitely help with those things, what I actually support women to do, and most of my clients, is how to experience and get to know the relationship you have with money if you have money, and the scarcity that can still exist, and the challenges that are still incredibly valid, but I find aren't often talked about in this space because it's taboo, because of all the things that led me to my own breakdown, realizing that. And I see myself as only one part of a obviously much broader industry and discussion on money and relationship with it. But I find it's a really unique space to be in, one that all of my clients and anyone I speak to about it they feel this relief that there's finally an avenue and a place to talk about the rich girl problems that were mentioned in my bio.
I think what there's so many things that I have like a plethora of things, comments and ideas and thoughts that I want to share because you've touched so many things. So let's first go back to the language around scare. Like I think that we, by nature, the majority of us are raised with, you know what, not right now. We can't afford that. That's what we hear, and then and I've done that myself. I've done that myself to my kids. My son and I actually had a great conversation around this the other day, that because of the way our brains work, we're still working with the caveman brain. It's our brains have not evolved because we can turn on a light in a house. It is still the same matter. It is still the same function, right? Um, and so we by nature are looking for sharp objects. We are looking for negativity. We are more prone to the negative than the positive. And I think that this is just a personal opinion. I think that financial gain and money management has to shift over into that personal or that positive space of the brain before you can even get a grab on it. Because if you're working on it from not enough, not enough, not enough, I'm scared. I don't know if you can ever get a grab on that. Would you agree? Is that kind of part of the psychology?
That is, yeah, and that's part of positive psychology as well, and why there needed to be a separate subfield of psychology to focus on what happens when we thrive, what happens when we're flourishing, what leads youth to develop in optimal, amazing ways, and sometimes no matter the history or circumstance. But of course, that's a consideration too. And this positive psych and my work is not to dismiss the importance and the necessity of other points of the conversation. And I like to say that at the early onset of any conversation, because when people hear positive psychology, when they hear how I talk about things, I think often there's an assumption that I am dismissing or asking um, people to just look at the positives, just look at the silver linings, just adopt a positive abundance money mindset. And that isn't the point. That isn't my message. That isn't what I see to work. Same in positive psych. That's not the message in positive psych. But understandably, it's misconstrued because it's called positive psych, or we hear so much the abundance money mindset. Really, to your point, and what I see work with my clients, and my message is that it's natural, like you were talking to earlier, to have a scarcity mindset, to have fears, and we all adopt those in various ways for survival based on how we were brought up, based on our life experiences and circumstance. And those are going to be there, and it's okay. And it's actually often leads us to understand ourselves in a crucial way, to know our values, to know what helps us to feel safe and secure based on the things that are causing us to not feel safe and secure. So all of those are absolutely key elements to the conversation. So it's not to get rid of those things. It's to ensure that we also have a dedicated space to adopt the positivity, or the goal orientation, or the questions like, what do you want? And why do you want it? And why do you want that? Digging even deeper under that. So it's adding in the quote unquote positives, and the values and the desire into this conversation. But I do want to make a point that it's not to say you're bad or wrong or shouldn't have fears, scarcity. That's all a normal experience and can also be really informative.
Absolutely. I mean, courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is understanding there is fear there and then pushing through it, right?
Mhm.
And I do worry about today in the sense that there is so much negativity around us, and now we have all these weird things on the deep fake. I was on Instagram the other day and I saw Elon Musk pitching me a get rich quick program. It was an AI deep fake. Immediately reported it, of course, but I'm sitting there going, how many people are so desperate? They don't understand that the solution isn't out there. It's within here,
Mm.
right? How do you work with people that come to you that go, if I just made more money? Like,
Mhm.
can people get ahead or at least feel secure even if they are in a position, and we see a lot of women who are single moms, and I want to put this right out there. I am the eldest daughter of a single mom, and my mom worked a job full time and worked part time at a pancake house on the weekends to make ends meet. Can somebody like that, through proper understanding of finances, move beyond the fear, the scarcity fear?
Mhm. And can you restate, you asked, I'll answer that question too, but you phrased it a slightly differently earlier, if you can remember.
Okay, I cannot remember. You're
Yeah, no,
talking,
that's
I am
okay.
54 this
That's
you
okay.
got to grab it quick with me. But can somebody who's on a, a lot of people are going through, I need to make more money.
Yeah.
Need to make more money. How do we move that mindset from, instead of I need to make more money, is like, I can live within these means and be secure, and I can still grow forward.
Yeah,
There's
that's
still
the one
opportunity.
yes, that's the one I was looking for, because you said what I hear all the time of, I need more. And so simple, but also, um, gosh, so it can be all consuming. And to the second part of your question of, for instance, a single mom working multiple jobs to make ends meet, this is part of my work too. And to be honest, it's I'm doing a lot of personal work. I have recently hired another coach to do this work, because I often struggle. You can even hear by my stuttering of words with this part of the conversation, to find where I can confidently stand in my expertise and experience without diminishing or being naive to or oblivious to someone else's situation, and yet come back to, I only know my experience and then what I learn of others' experiences. And so, speaking to that specific portrait that you painted, I don't know what it's like to be in that situation or to be a daughter of someone in that situation. And so, I can't speak for that individual, of course. And what I can speak to is knowing that how I work with my clients, this requires a two-part system. So, on the first half, It's sitting down and organizing our money, creating a budget, if that word is triggering for you, creating a cash flow system, a way to organize what you have, where it's going. And I do this with my clients in a very intentional way. You won't be surprised. That's based on your goals and your values. So, unlike a cookie cutter budget, it's not, here's the water utility and the mortgage and the groceries, and it should be XYZ costs delegated to these different categories. That is not the approach I take. That's not the approach that I've seen to work. The approach that I take is starting with a conversation on what do you value? What is your ideal life? What is stressing you out? What helps you to feel safe? And then we go into the organization of money and the building out of a budget, a money flow system that has those things built into it. So when my clients open their budget, they're excited to, because it's their life that they're looking at. It's not some rules that they have to follow. And so for anyone, that's the first step, not the only step, but the first step is to sit down and organize our money and see first, where is it going? Do I have enough? Do I not have enough? And what number is that? Like, what are we actually working with from a quantitative data perspective? And then the second part, and this speaks a little bit more directly to your question, but they both have to work together. The second part is the mindset work. And it's saying, okay, if you feel like you don't have enough, one, now that we've sat down and organized your money, is that true? And if it is, what does that actually mean? What can we brainstorm to work through what's actually going on? If it's not true, where is that coming from? Or like, what is it? Maybe it's a next level dream that you have. Maybe it's some of these scarcity beliefs that have just tagged on along for the ride in your new season of life. And it has to have both of these things, because I find, back to the conversation of everyone has a different life experience, and I can't speak for anyone else's experience. We can create a lot of beliefs and a lot of stories in our mind that feel very, very true. And sometimes they are, but sometimes they're not. And we really have to look at what we're dealing with first, and then work with, okay, what part of this is mindset? What part of this is like a practical plan, and marry the two together.
So you have the life coaching, budget coaching, and yoga.
Mhm.
How, like, where is, if you prioritize those in kind of your clientele, your growth, your speaking, which is first on your list?
Mm. I would actually put positive psych first, my master's degree. And then, because I was actually life coach certified before getting that master's degree, but I wasn't confident enough personally to coach until I had that master's. And then I really applied that life coaching cert. And positive psych is like traditional therapy. Traditional psychologists go through traditional psychology training most of the time. I think the field is changing, which is also really exciting. Life coaches are to positive psychology. One way of looking at it is what therapists are to traditional psychology. So it's definitely, the education was intertwined with both of those things. But yes, back to your question, positive psych, I would say is the top, because that's the lens through which I view all of these things, and also the research backed understanding of why these practices work the way that they do. And below that, I would honestly put life coaching first, because it really, again, back to, yes, even though I'm creating a budget, it starts with, what do you value? Why do you value it? What do you want? Why do you want that? What are you afraid of? Some of these deep life coaching questions that illuminate so much. And then budget coaching, which is like the required conversation I saw that was needed to be had with my clients from the get. And yoga, I taught for many years. I don't currently teach, but it still is incorporated into my work with clients through more of the body and semantics of the coaching, because so much is processed in our body, and it's really like a shortcut to some of the information that we're needing to find.
I think a lot of people don't realize it. I think, isn't yoga a principle? It's like a life principle. It's not just an exercise.
Mhm.
It's an actual mind, body, spirit principle.
Yes, and that's one of my favorite parts of the yoga training that I went through, is learning the philosophy of it as well, the lived practice of it. So yes, you're very correct.
Alrighty, quick question for you. And and if we have to come back to this, it's okay if you want to think about it for a moment. But if you shared three 3 steps, 3 things that today somebody's listening to this today, and we're going to set them on the path of at least understanding they need help or understanding that they're okay, it is doable. What are the 3 things somebody can do today to start moving into a positive reframe of their life overall? Because and I know that and I say life overall because you've talked about the positive psychology, you've talked about the yoga, we've also talked about budget. So let's not talk just specifically 3 things within creating a budget. Let's talk about 3 things when your feet hit the ground after listening to this the next day. What are 3 things that they could implement to start moving forward, to start feeling that they can take control, so they can turn off all that white noise we have going on in this world, this scarcity, this fear, right?
Mhm.
And start living in a more positive space.
Yeah. The first is feels so simple, but it's asking yourself what you want. And I like this. I didn't come up with this. I need to quote or look up who came up with the 5-layer why. But it's something that I introduced to a lot of my clients in a lot of my workshops and presentations. Is not just saying me asking you or you asking yourself, what do you want? I want a nicer home, or I want a home on a lake. That sounds lovely to me. I want a home on a lake. Why do you want that? Well, because it's pretty. Well, why do you want something pretty? Well, because I feel calm when I'm in a pretty space. Why do you feel calm? Or what's important about feeling calm for you in a pretty space? Well, because then I can relax and like I feel welcome to host family and friends. Oh, so is this about bringing family and friends and these traits and experiences that you find meaningful in your life? It gets down to this layer where it's not just saying, I want XYZ, I want a house, I want a different job, I want to move across the country. It's why do you want those things? And some benefits of that: one, you're getting clear on what you want. That gives you a North Star to work toward. No matter what practices you then implement from there, it's guiding you, it's helping you walk forward, but it also allows you to be more agile and flexible. So it's not just saying, I want a house on a lake. Maybe that ends up being the manifestation of it. But also, if it's coming down for you to, well, I want a space where I feel safe and relieved and relaxed and open to hosting family, it might look different, but still very much feel aligned and like an amazing success in terms of you getting and going for what you want. And chances are, sometimes you can even have what you want or a version of what you want pretty instantaneously or way sooner than the ultimate goal without letting go of the ultimate goal as well. But asking yourself that now to gain all of those benefits. So asking yourself what you want, but in a little different variation maybe than you've done before. The second would be a fear inventory. I've done this with my coach many times. She welcomed me to do it recently, in fact. And I do want to add the preface that if you don't feel safe or if you know yourself to be in a pretty dark headspace, do this with a trained professional or maybe just skip this exercise. But if you feel relatively okay, you just find yourself getting stuck in these scarcity or fear or worry or doubt spaces oftentimes, or sometimes you just feel like it keeps resurfacing and guiding your decisions, then this fear inventory is a great way to write it all down, to get it all from your head out on paper. And oftentimes you look at it and you realize a lot of this stuff isn't real or doesn't matter or is out of my control. And so maybe I can just let it go. And even just speaking to them, I think ironically often belittles the power that they have in your life too, they being the fears. Those are the first two that came to mind. Let me think if I can think of a third one immediately to start improving life. I think acting from the place of where you ideally want to be, that can be easier said than done and sometimes is a little woo or out there. But if you're struggling to make a decision, if you are feeling like you're not sure what you want to do for the day or what is your next step, or even like something as little as debating in your refrigerator of like, what do you want to eat next? Asking yourself and living from the place of who do I want to be, who ideally am I stepping into, what was the best version of me. And then the point really isn't to get it perfect and to always be your best, but just even having that filter and that lens to say, well, I'm kind of unsure what to do right now. Anyway, this happened to me this morning at 5 a.m. when my alarm went off. I was like, well, I don't have to go to the spin class, but I might go to the spin class and I could. What would the better version of me or like an ideal version, my best guess, do? I think she'd go. And I went, and it was great. And sometimes the answer is to stay home and sleep. Like it's not always, the exertion or like the force of I don't know, power and grit and grind. But just having that filter allows for those decisions to come with some more clarity.
Rich girl, rich girl, problems. So I'm thinking that this is actually going to tie into kind of that story of resilience. And am I correct in kind of gauging that you had this challenge in 2021? Um, and this is, and you're not alone because it is a global phenomenon we are seeing globally. Like it's not just the United States or Canada. I mean, we're seeing it in droves in even countries like China who are going through entire financial meltdowns right now. And that there's all these things going on. And I'm just going to give you my 2 cents on this. And I want everybody to think about this. Whatever you're going through is what you are going through, and you have permission to feel it to the deepest of your soul. Comparing it to somebody else has it worse or somebody else has it better does not negate what you feel. I have this said to me all the time. People will say, "Oh, well, this happened, but it's not as bad as what happened to you, Kim." But you know what? That's not this question. So I really want to go through this rich girl scenario because I hear this and I've talked a lot about this, right? So walk me through your a little bit of that breakdown, and I'm guessing maybe some of the guilt or the fear to speak about the rich girl issues, um, and why you've chosen to use that phrase, rich girl.
Hmm. I like your preface too of everyone's feelings, experiences are so valid and to feel them to their fullest. Um, yeah, rich girl. I did not come up with the phrase rich girl problems or adopt it personally. It took some nudging from close mentors and trusted colleagues around me as I spoke more and more to what I was seeing as a need and an area that I could speak to and that I was passionate to speak to. And then I started adopting it and owning it a little more because it really does, one, it sparks intrigue. It immediately brings up some feelings, a lot of feelings, maybe for various reasons for people. And not that I intentionally want to like make anyone uncomfortable, but it kicks off the conversation just like we're doing right now. So a little bit about that breakdown. You were spot on. The guilt, there was shame, there was confusion about what to do. And what happened in that breakdown, I always hesitate saying this, it is on YouTube. I filmed it and eventually, years later, I posted it to just give a little insight and a little humanity to what this can look like for some people, and that hopefully anyone else who experiences something somewhat similar, it helps them to feel less alone or less guilty or ashamed of the feelings or the experiences that they're having, and to validate that. But what it was, I was on a walk. I was probably listening to a podcast or something at the time, and something about what was said had me take out my phone. That's why I started filming, and I was kind of just doing a journal entry. I do that every now and then to myself, and was talking about the privilege that I have had in my life, and especially in the field of positive psychology and coaching and supporting others on their journeys to finding and deciding and choosing their best life. There was something inside of me that I didn't realize until that moment that was feeling, or at least I didn't understand until that moment. It was feeling like there was some friction there of like something isn't, like I feel off or I feel inauthentic in a certain way. Um, and that bugged me because even for a certain time, I called myself the authentic alignment coach. Like authenticity is such a crucial part. Obviously, you've heard me talk about it today, to everything that I do of helping you choose and be who you want to be. And so knowing that I wasn't living that within myself, but not fully understanding why or what that was about, came to a head at that breakdown when I was just journal speaking to myself and admitted out loud how much money I had been given all the different aspects of my life that had been truly given to me. Yes, I'm a hard worker. I was diligent in school. I started a business. I will give myself credit. And also, I need to give credit to the privilege and the resources that I have and have had available to me along the way. And admitting that and this breakdown that followed was realizing how much guilt and shame I had around that, but also realizing that the guilt and shame, which were kind of well intentioned in the fact of I was trying to, in a weird way, acknowledge that that is a privilege to have money or to have resources or to have started a business as young as I was, or go through school, all of these things. The guilt, I think, was trying to take ownership for that or acknowledge that that is not everyone's experience. But what it was actually doing, and led to an even more of a breakdown, was it was making me be a less ideal person. Not that I think I was this awful person, but I just realized, wow, I haven't been admitting my full truth. I haven't been sharing this full truth. At least, you don't have to share everything with everyone, but I had been hiding that part of myself. And therefore, I wasn't being honest and authentic. I wasn't sharing this piece of me. And therefore, like admitting that to potentially other business owners, for instance, I had talked to and maybe even given advice to, and I hadn't acknowledged this part of my success or story that is a part of it and needs to be talked about. And I also, in that breakdown, felt the weight of realizing I felt like I didn't know where to go for support with these specific questions and this specific feeling. I felt like I couldn't talk about it. I felt like I was ashamed that who am I to quote unquote complain or like feel sad about having resources or having money? Like, what is even that? There was so much for me to feel in that moment, and then led to all the coaching and therapy and personal growth, and speaking more to it, because like the fear inventory I talked about earlier, the more we speak to it, I think the less power it holds, but also the more power in a positive way it holds. And so the rich girl problems is giving a space and allowing myself, and now my clients who feel similarly, of having resources, of maybe having a lot of privilege or being given things in their life that maybe they don't feel they deserved or they feel ashamed or guilty about, and allowing them to ask the questions that they have that are just as valid as someone asking how to get out of debt, or someone asking I don't know, any other question that is so common in like the budgeting and money space, or like how to invest money, which all of these, again, like I said at the very beginning, I'm one piece of a much larger puzzle, obviously. But it's an important piece that I hadn't found, at least in my experience, prior to me first owning that within myself, going through the work, adding the training, and then allowing others to come to me and share with their own experiences and lives and goals and desires.
I want to take a moment and share this. Robert Kawasaki, everybody knows who he is, Rich Dad Poor Dad. He's a great lecturer. But guilt is worse than greed, for guilt robs the body of its soul. And I think we all walk around with so much guilt. And if a person can succeed upward, like overcome childhood trauma, overcome disability, d- you know, they also have guilt. They're going, oh, I left somebody behind. I have survivor's guilt, right? So I just, when you were talking, that was what really came to mind, was this whole, we keep giving our power away, because when we give that energy over, then that's energy that could go into volunteering to make sandwiches for a children's brown bag program in your local community. It that guilt eats away at things that can make true differences. Energy, it can make true differences.
I
Um,
love I love that you shared that quote. What it makes me think of too is, and I kind of spoke to this in that story, but I the the assumption that our guilt is actually making us a better person, and I think this is subconscious most of the time, um, And therefore, it also prevents us from doing any of the work that we need to do to become better people and citizens and community members. And I actually find that guilt almost like creates, in my experience and what I've seen with clients, greater greed, not consciously, but those
Yes.
actions are a result of often feeling so guilty and then hiding and ashamed and all the things that follow that.
And a lot of times that guilt is something in your head.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. It's interesting. We were talking, Bob Berg is one of my favorite authors. He wrote The Go Giver and Go Giver Sell More. My background is in real estate and in sales. Very much an entrepreneur through and through, but I've always been community based. And talks about the perceptions and languages and conversations. And the reality is everything is a perception. If you choose to have a perception that you are the guilty party, that you did something wrong, that will be the narrative that's in your head. However, if you choose to have the perception that you did the best you could, and next time maybe you'll do a little bit better, but right now that best you could was pretty good. That changes the narrative, has changed the guilt within. I do want to jump into your book. So we have your book here. By the way, your cover is gorgeous. I am in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. So this is something that I see every day on my drive.
Mm.
But walk me through Ready Enough. Why did you do it? And what can the reader expect from your book?
Mm. Yeah, Ready Enough is my first published book. I'm sure more will come. And I'm really proud of it. It has personal stories, client stories, with permission, of course, and a lot of practices that you can apply to make more confident decisions that are really true for you. And in terms of what a reader can expect, it's a 7-step process. So it really lays it out for you in a hopefully clear, linear way, even though it tends to be a cyclical cycle, and that's okay and expected. And there's a lot of, like I said, practices within there and stories. One of the highest compliments I received in terms of the experience of reading this book is from my best friend, who was so supportive and read it. Admittedly, she said, I read this book truly just to support you, but I wasn't really interested in it. We've had a lot of interesting conversations in terms of my work and our history and friendship. And she said, Marin, it was so good. She's like, it was the only personal development book I've read that I didn't feel like I was being preached at or belittled or judged. And so I hope that's many, many people's experiences where you can read it. The whole point is to help you live the life that you want, make the decisions that you want to make. So I have no idea what that is. Only you have an idea of what that is. And this is a guide to help you feel more confident in whatever you decide, and then take ownership and action when you're ready to align your life with those decisions, choices, and ultimately the life that you are wanting.
Excellent. And we can get this on Amazon.
Mhm.
Um, we will have the Amazon link in our show notes. And it's always good to expand, especially if you feel that you are stuck. And you know what? I'm going to give everybody a tip here. A lot of people are feeling stuck these days. I do a lot of interviews and I hear a lot of people who are feeling guilty because they feel stuck and they don't feel that they should talk about it because their life is better than others. And we have this like it's just like,
Mhm.
oh my gosh. It's like, oh my gosh, we are, you know, it's an interesting cycle we're in nowadays. It's almost like too much information is going on out there. So, I would love to know where people can find and follow you. And do you have um, anything like on your website, or are there any resources that people, because now they've gotten to know you, is there anything that they can engage with you before jumping into a call or anything like that?
Absolutely. Yes. I hang out most on Instagram. So if you want to see both valuable content, but also funny and get to know me and my style and perspective, I am on that platform most. And then in terms of a resource, I'd love to offer my free resource for podcast listeners. And it is the 5 key questions I ask all of my clients at the very start of any relationship with money conversation that we have. So just like we did today, yes, it's about money and finding your financial freedom and whatever that looks like for you, but it's also the whole picture. Like, what does that actually mean to you? Where might you be getting tripped up? What are some of the things you can already start doing to experience what you're wanting?
Amazing. So go to yes and by. That's all spelled out, folks. Yes and by Marin, Marin.com. And do grab that. I mean, it never hurts to. I did every single does he like me? Does he not? Quiz and all the teen magazines. Does that tell you how old I am? Um, I do every free thing, like everything, because it's an opportunity to find out if that person, if I were to dive deeper with that person, that we align, that this person brings value. So I encourage you definitely to go and grab and do the download and kind of get engaged a bit in Marin's life and see if there's a fit there for you. I always like to close out the show with a quote. And this is the reason I do this is so that the people every day is a day, and it can be a good day or it can be a tough day. And the quotes are these are pieces that maybe somebody needs to borrow for the day. Maybe they hadn't heard that quote and they go, "Ah, that fits me. That fits me. I'm going to do that." So my dog is dying here, like running around. Do you see the little tail
I
running in
do. It's
here?
so cute.
So tell us your quote and why this quote resonates with you right now in your life.
Hmm. The quote is, "The thing you are most afraid to write, write that." And I'll add a slight context that I found this quote many years ago before I even started writing my first book. And I knew it was important, but I also wasn't ready to apply that quote. And that's why I say another book is coming, because my first book is amazing. I'm so proud of it. There's so much value in there. And there's more to write that at the time I didn't even know I was afraid to write it. But it's just there are layers, right, that we have to peel back. And whether you're an author or an aspiring author or sharing something online or with family and friends, or even honestly with yourself, like the activities we talked about that were kind of more journaling activities today, writing down your fears, or like, sometimes even more scary, writing down what you really want. That's the thing to lean into, get curious about. It doesn't mean you need to act on it right away. It doesn't mean you're wrong if it's not in existence for you immediately. But it is the place where there's so much gold, is to lean into the things that we're maybe a little afraid of. If anything, to get curious and see what it's there to teach us.
Thank you so much for your time today. This has been I think, a really insightful conversation, especially where a lot of people are right now. And you know what, folks, you're not alone. I promise you, you are not alone. We're all in this together. And I think it's finding balance and being happy within who you are, and then addressing. You can't fix something unless you address it. You can't grow unless you know what you want, where you want to be. So, Marin, thank you so much. And I know this was like a real quick turnaround for you to come onto the show, and I really appreciate your time.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you, everyone, for listening.
Excellent. All right, folks, stick around for my super duper outro here. And here we go. Bye for now. Thank you for joining us here today at Kim Talks Resilience. I'm your host, Kim Hayden, and I'd love to invite you to our resilient community at resilientgift.com. That's resilientgift.com, and we'll send you our magazine and tickets for upcoming events and all sorts of cool things we do here. So be sure to keep watching, and you know what? Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and share, because we all know that sharing is caring.